keynote address on technology impact to the global economy presented by Professor Krishnamurthy Subramanian, Executive Director at the International Monetary Fund. He's a professor at the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. As the youngest chief economic advisor to the Government of India from 2018 to 2021, Dr. Subramanian instituted policy that led to India emerging from the once-in-a-century COVID crisis with strong microeconomic fundamentals. Acknowledging Dr. Subramanian's contributions, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, noted his academic brilliance, unique perspectives on economic and policy matters, and reformatory zeal. Please give it up for Professor Krishnamurthy Subramanian.
A very good afternoon, participants. Sharing my thoughts on important topic, AI, and how it can transform not only India but also not only the Indian economy but also the global economy. I think if you had asked me about a month back what would be my view of AI, it would have been very different to what I'm going to share today. A month back, there was no DeepSeek, there was no Quen, of Alibaba, and both of these are open source platforms, as you all certainly know. And one wondered as an Indian whether the AI opportunity will basically be restricted to the US. But since the last month, barriers to entry on AI have been actually significantly broken, and therefore now I'm actually far more encouraged about the opportunity that it presents, not only for the Indian economy but also for the global economy. As an economist, I've always believed that competition is actually excellent for in any area, and I think the arrival of DeepSeek and Quen and other platforms clearly signals significant competition in the AI space. As we talk, I think Indian AI models are also being worked on. I think very soon I expect Indian AI models also to be well trained. I think therefore the opportunity that India has is significant. I just want to share three areas as just examples where I think India can benefit significantly from the use of AI. Firstly, it is on languages, and I think India, given the number of languages that we have, that we speak, 22 languages just in the schedule of the constitution. Now AI, use of AI can actually really help our talent especially in the more rural areas and small towns, those that may not have adequate felicity in speaking English, but are very smart. If you look at someone like one of the entrepreneurs, Sridhar Vembu, who is really who's recruiting talented kids, in hinterland of Tamil Nadu, and like that. I think the use of AI can actually really help. Kids can, for instance, speak in a language that they are very familiar with. Kids and youth as well, they can speak, and translation can happen in immediately into English or other languages. And I think this is something that will really equalize opportunity for a lot of the youth in India, who are very good in terms of their conceptual understanding, but may not have as much felicity in English. So I think that's the first opportunity that I really see, and I hope that there'll be a lot of platforms that will come up that will be able to do this translation instantaneously, and thereby really provide opportunities to our youth. A couple of that's one key application that can really sort of enable talent to come to the fore in the Indian context. A couple of more that I want to really illustrate is actually let's take the financial sector, and I think here the opportunity is enormous, because if you look at the ratio of private credit to GDP in the Indian economy, The ratio of private credit to GDP is about 58%. Maybe it's about 60% now. 58% it was in 2020. It may be close to 60%. I haven't checked the very recent data, but I think I expect that number to have not changed very much. The global average for private credit to GDP, on the other hand, is 150%. So just think about it. Actually, about 60% versus 150%. So India has to move significantly in providing credit, and even that 58% as private credit to GDP. Private credit is basically the credit that is given to individuals and firms. That's the average, and that does actually mask that the fact that large sections of the Indian population still do not get credit to be able to go and fructify their opportunities, their ideas, create businesses. And this is an aspect that I think AI can really play a significant role in, because so far a lot of the credit in India has been actually based primarily on collateral. Lending is done only using collateral. If you have a land or if you have a factory, the things that you can put up, physical assets that you can put up as collateral, those are used to basically provide a loan. But India has been and will continue to be a services dominated economy, and service sector firms do not have necessarily as much physical assets. Many firms, for instance, that those that are in the digital economy possibly have only a laptop or maybe a PC as the only physical asset. And most of the assets are that they have actually are their human capital, their brains, and so that can of course not be pledged. So it is important therefore for credit to be given based on on cash flow streams, and here's where the use of AI can be very very useful, because those models can be trained very well on past data, because I'll give you a very 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 tangible example. You're all in Hyderabad. Actually, let me give you an example from Hyderabad. As you all know, actually I've been a professor at the Indian School of Business. If you step out of ISB and come to Indira Nagar, there there is this Udupi store, where actually Udupi shop, where I used to go and drink coffee. Now this person who actually sells coffee used to typically, about, if you 2016-17, would only would only, and if you drank a coffee, you wanted to pay him 7 rupees, so he had to basically ferret out change, to be able to give you 3 rupees back if you gave him a 10 rupee note, or maybe 43 rupees back if you gave him a 50 rupee note. Now these businesses actually use, clearly they use, you can pay them using Google Pay or maybe Paytm. And so when I was when I returned back, after my stint with the government, I was noticing that he actually was having sort of, and because I speak Telugu very well, I actually would engage with him, and he would tell me that because of the digital economy, because of digital payments, he's now become far more productive, because he doesn't have to actually waste his time having to ferret out cash in order to give back money. Not only that, actually, and one of the benefit has also percolated to the supply chain. The milk supplier who actually would come and give him milk in the morning, typically earlier when there was cash payment, that milk supplier would have to come back in the evening in order to actually get the get the payment for his milk. Now, because of digital payments, actually this coffee maker, tea maker, actually in the Udupi store can pay him, make a digital payment. Now think about actually what cash flow based lending can do this to this particular seller of coffee, and and tea, etc. Now he can actually use the data that he has, digital data, actually from payments, to be able to go and approach a bank for a loan, because he can show his records of, okay, say that, look, I actually earn about 30,000 rupees a month. This is my actual receipts, this is my payments, and that's my revenue. And using that data, he can actually can really approach. And here's where I think it is important now for the Reserve Bank to really think carefully about enabling cash flow based lending for asset creation, not for not for consumption, but for asset creation and for new business generation. I think this is an area, and here AI models can be really very very powerful in assessing credit risk of borrowers, hitherto borrowers who actually have been outside the formal financial system. A second opportunity that I see is in healthcare. And India actually has been one of the countries countries where alternative health systems are used significantly, whether it's Ayurveda, whether it's homeopathy, whether it's Unani, these, and many times in these alternative medical systems, actually diagnosis is really critical. Being able to diagnose the problem very well is actually is very important. For instance, I've actually consulted with Ayurvedic practitioners who would actually see your nadi. They basically will look at the nadi, for instance, and thereby they will actually infer what is the problem. Now, only a very few very experienced Ayurvedic practitioners can actually do that. But I think using artificial intelligence now, I think instruments can be developed that can actually diagnose the problem very well, and thereby be able to use alternative medicine. And this is an area where therefore I think there is significant opportunity to be able to so healthcare is a second area. A third area that I education. And here, I think if you look at the very latest Acer report that came. Acer as it looks at evaluates the arithmetic skills and language skills among schools in India. I think some very good news has emerged that the level of arithmetic and language in across many states in India has improved significantly over the last 5 6 6 6 odd years. And I think that is something that is very excellent news. But there's still more work to be done, and I think here's where remedial education can actually be very useful, because even today, for instance, some proportion of kids, even in studying in class 8, essentially cannot do arithmetic at the class 2 or class 3 levels. Similarly, class 7 kids, actually down from class 8 till class 2, class 3, actually there are many kids who actually have not learned arithmetic or language at the levels that they basically need to be in. And here's where I think remedial education, but the remedial education needs to be tailored to the particular to the kid, to assess actually how far is the kid in in a particular area. For instance, it may be that, let's say, the kid maybe does arithmetic very well but does not maybe understand algebra as well. For instance, if it is, let's say, mathematics, this may be a class 7 kid. So now, in first diagnosing that, to be using some exams that are actually, or maybe quizzes that are tailored to the kid, and in local language, maybe, because there is clearly, again, a lot of research that shows that providing education in the local language actually really enables understanding. So here's another area, set of areas actually where really AI can be used. And so like this, there are many examples. I think the broader point that I want to actually emphasize to all of you, especially the software entrepreneurs and overall other entrepreneurs in India, is to actually think about problems like these, and solve these problems, actually solve India's problems at India scale and at Indian price points. I think that's the message that I want to leave. There are many problems actually. So once again, solve India's problems at India scale, and at Indian price points. Because I hope you understand India scale actually, because solving something for basically, let's say, 100,000 people is something that actually in any advanced economy will be a very large number. But why 100,000 people or 1 lakh people is still just a drop in the ocean in India, and therefore these problems need to be solved at gigantic scales actually. So I think that is something important. At the same time, at Indian price points, and here's, I think, if I'm sure our entrepreneurs can learn from ISRO, how, for instance, ISRO is able to do the rocket launches at a fraction of the price, basically, or that of what NASA does. And so here I would really request our entrepreneurs to put on their thinking hats. And even though I have worked with the government, I will tell you that problem solving requires entrepreneurs, actually wealth creators, to take that risk and really work on solving these problems. AI is a phenomenal opportunity, and I really hope that that all of you, actually, it's such talented, such passionate individuals, and there's absolutely no paucity of that in India. I think enormous talent, enormous amount of passion. So I would say that, go and grab these opportunities. As I've written in my book India at 100, I expect India to actually be 50 plus trillion, $55 trillion economy by 2047. So such an economy requires our entrepreneurs to be able to go and grab these opportunities. I wish you all the very best, all the entrepreneurs. Go and help yourself by solving India's problems, and in the process help the nation as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Subramanian. His vision in a 15-minute talk cannot be sufficed. So if you want to read and know more about Dr. Subramanian's vision, please, you can purchase his book called India at 100. Yeah. So thank you so much, Doctor. And now we move.
So, there is a full house, Dr. Subramaniam. Firstly, so Dr. Subramaniam is going live from Washington, D.C. It is not a very humanly appreciated hour, but thank you so much for taking this time out for India, for Telangana and Hyderabad. Doctor, before we bid you a brief goodbye, before we see you in India, I just wanted to talk about, and on the screen, the whole room and the conference is seeing your book, India at 100. There is also certain copies circulating in the room, and there was some very curious one question that came up, and I would talk about it and want to have one insight of yours. You have talked in your book about the top 5 pillars of growth and how, if those are worked upon, it can take our country to a different league and level. Would you want to shed that light on those top 5 levers with the room and our friends here in the room?
Thank you so much, Saurabh, and thanks for sharing about India at 100 with the audience there. It's a book of ambition. I must say, I've always believed that the difference between a cynic and a visionary is that a cynic looks for a challenge in every opportunity, and a visionary looks for an opportunity in every challenge, much like entrepreneurs do. And I think in India, oftentimes, especially on the economy, cynics are in very large supply, and therefore the price of cynicism is very low. But visionaries are actually in far scarce supply, and therefore the price of vision is actually far higher, and rather therefore add to the supply of vision. That's what the book is about. The 4 pillars that you were mentioning, Saurabh, actually are, and I think the question that basically was asked, the 4 pillars that I've covered in the book are: the first pillar is a macroeconomic focus on growth and growth alone, and not hobbling it with other aspects, because when growth happens, actually that's when the pie expands, and that enables us to do more welfare. And not just that, growth itself lifts a lot of people from poverty and converts them to middle class, as we've seen over the last three decades in India. So I think the first focus therefore is on growth and growth alone. Second is on a second pillar is social and economic inclusion, and social and economic inclusion, especially through job creation, because my own personal experience actually reveals, I come from a very humble background. My father worked in the as in the clerical grade in the Indian Railways. If he did not have a job, there is no way he would have been able to educate me, and my younger brother, and here I wouldn't be here, being able to share these thoughts. I think that illustrates the power of job creation, and formal sector job creation, that family to be socially and economically included, in the Indian society. And in a similar way, I actually want such a similar dream to be actually fructified by scores of other families in India through job creation. That's the second pillar: social and economic inclusion. Third is actually something that I alluded to in my remarks, which is wealth creation. Thinking about wealth creation as a boon, not as a necessary evil. And I think this is something so many of you might have noticed. Last week I wrote a piece in the Times of India as well. Really making the case for this. So that's the third. But wealth creation not through any means, creation in an ethical manner. and ethical wealth creation, the virtuous cycle triggered by private investment. Because if you look at countries that have grown at very fast pay, rates, whether it's a China or a Japan or the East Asian economies, they've all done on the back of a virtuous cycle triggered by private investment. So these are the four pillars. Working on these, India can actually be a $55 trillion economy, thereby rubbing shoulders with the largest economy in the world when we turn 100. Not very far, from the largest economies. That's the kind of opportunity that India has, and for that we have to grow at 8%, and that's why I think entrepreneurs like the one that have gathered in your platform they are really critical to really fructifying this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I know that it's not enough to take a pie of your mind in these 20-25 minutes, but I would encourage everyone in the room, if we want to envision India at 100, there is this book. I personally liked it. I have gone through this 2 times because it also gave me impetus of where all the growth vectors are, what as a nation we can think, and as Doctor says, as entrepreneurs, where the growth levers for every entrepreneur would be. Dr. Subramanian, it's a privilege and honor to have you here with us today. Thank you so much.